So in any case, the psychotherapist that tries to call me bipolar or mentally ill in any way, shape, or form has to say this in order to conceal their directed energy crimes, their hate crimes against humanity. This is what is needed to be said and done in order to conceal crimes against humanity. The exploitation that the police and the doctor are responsible for doing, that's why every single abuser gaslights and calls their victims crazy, so they can conceal the crimes that they are responsible for committing, collective and covert. God, I am feeling good today. Amen. Hallelujah. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Welcome back to another show. Welcome back to another episode. Good morning or good afternoon to all of my viewers, listeners, and Soul Tribe family. The name of this program is called It's a Conspiracy, But It Ain't No Theory. It's a Conspiracy, But It Ain't No Theory is a nonprofit social service agency, suicide prevention campaign servicing the needs of families and foster children at risk. Lending my voice to help raise awareness by soft publishing a book trilogy called Lucy's Lair. Lucy's Lair is a graphic novel based on true events following my life as a freelance artist. Check that out when you get a chance. This program is intended to help encourage, heal, and empower survivors of cancel culture and rape culture, providing free information regarding child abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, electronic harassment, gang stalking, conspiracy, and true organized crimes against humanity. Your company can help by providing funds in a grant or by donating goods and services as I continue delivering this information and evidence to the public and advocating for foster children in need. Thank you in advance for all of your support. On today's episode, I'm going to be discussing gang stalking, hypersimulation theory, psychological operations, plus surviving the New World Disorder per usual, surviving manufactured chaos, surviving manufactured karma, spelled with a capital C, surviving white genocide. If you have a white relative or loved one that was wrongfully terminated, it's because Black Lives Matter, and it is a part of this white genocide, this ethnic cleansing, and this electronic targeting holocaust, and surviving the electronic targeting holocaust. My name is Adrienne Alese. I am the author and creator of a book trilogy called Lucy's Lair, Part 1, 2, and now 3. These books have gotten me the most hate from everybody that belongs to rape culture. The most hate from the traffickers that run this new world order. The most hate from the doctors and psychotherapists and police that are responsible for running and operating these counter-proliferation targeting programs. Doing the Lord's work here on this show, doing the Lord's work here on this program, exposing fake Christians, exposing the pastor for his alien Luciferian brotherhood and their demonic agenda, this depopulation, this eugenics right here. This is all a part of their demonic, alien, Luciferian agenda to continue. Lucy's Lair is a book trilogy reflecting my life as a survivor of rape culture, child sex trafficking, and psychological gas chambers. On this program, I advocate for women's rights. So all you ass-raping, porn addict men, you will watch this and you will become offended. So my advice to ass-raping porn addict men is not to watch this show at all. Go ahead and click off. This is your last and final warning, trigger warning. If you watch this and you're an ass-raping porn addict, male, toxic masculine, you will be triggered. You will be triggered. Click off. This is not for you. On this program, I advocate for women's rights, basic human rights, and the rights of those disabled. I also advocate on behalf of the foster children in the CPS system. Woo! Orphans, single mothers, foster mothers, and those less fortunate. Targeted individuals or trafficked victims are predominantly women. 65 to 70%. 65 to 70%. 65 to 70% of targeted individuals are, in fact, white American women or those who identify as such. This makes gang stalking an illegal operation or hate crime that is sexually and politically motivated towards American women and their children. This program is a dedication to the targeted individual community. The objective of the opposition or the counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO 2.0, is to subvert all of the target's potentiality, to terminate and to punish all supporters and sympathizers, to round down the target's output and audience, to marginalize the target, and to eliminate connections and networking ability. Nothing makes me happier than blowing the cover off of psychological operations that include eugenics, an alien demonic agenda for depopulation, and exposing these scandalous system operators that profile our psyches and medical records for the purpose of profiting off of our suffering and torment as the psychosadists that they actually are, working for the mob. Their career is a front. I deserve a freaking whistleblower of the greatest award of all time for whistleblowing and blowing the cover off of these black ops, top secret clandestine organizations and operations that are currently taking place covertly. These military bases, covert military bases that are set up around each and every single one of these TIs to sabotage their mental health, their reputation, their physical health, their financial well-being, wealth, and every single thing else. Nothing makes me happier than exposing this Luciferian brotherhood, this rape culture. Nothing does it for me anymore. This is all that does it for me. Nothing gets it going for me quite as much as this. Nothing does it. This is the creme de la crop right here. And I deserve to be recognized as more than just a homeless, insane person, because that is a lie. That is a lie. So like I said, nothing makes me happier than blowing the whistle on black ops, covert psychological operations that are illegal and clandestine. Nothing makes me happier. So am I happy at this moment? Absolutely. Exposing this Luciferian Brotherhood for what and who they actually are. I'm so excited for the next show. I'm so excited I don't even know where to begin. Getting a little loosey-goosey. Ain't nothing wrong with getting loosey-goosey, okay? That just means the person is comfortable. Thank you very much. But the enemy is not allowed to get loosey-goosey. Point blank, period. This rape culture is not allowed to get wet. They're not allowed to get hard. Y'all ain't hard enough. Get the fuck out of here. Torturing children and murdering their mothers. Y'all ain't hard enough. That's why you all need boner pills at the end of the day. Click off. So in any case, like I was saying when I began this episode, I have received so much overwhelming hate from every single person that belongs to this counterculture, cancel culture, rape culture. For the books that I've been called to not only write, but discuss here on this program. So pretty much every single show, episode, or program that I do here on this YouTube channel as a part of this suicide prevention campaign for fostered youth, you could never, woo, is an extension of the book that I wrote. To continue, Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods. This is my version of the boner pill. Spiritually speaking. Just to continue raping the rape culture that never stops. Anyways, this is my extended version, okay, to counter the rape culture's movement. In any case, to continue, oh my God, I'm overjoyed. Nothing makes me more excited or happier than exposing and blowing the whistle, blowing the cover off of all of these clandestine secret operations that are illegal, that have no place to be taking place or space in my mind, in my life, in my home, or just at all. So to continue, Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods. Harassment methods. Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods. Harassment methods. So, at this point, every single word that I have spoken, and every single action that I have taken is quite literally and factually self-defense, okay? Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods. Harassment methods. So that means every single person I've gone off on, every single person I've cursed, every single person that I have actually had to take a physical action towards. It is all in self-defense. Chapter 18, this is 666. This is their 666 content right here. This is the root of it, the core of all evil that exists in the entire world is right here in this Chapter 18. Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods used by FBI's COINTELPRO, Operation Gladio, covert community recruits and stay-behind armies, or, quote, Instruction Manual for Community Gang Stalkers. So when you watch movies like Men in Black and they're talking about programs that don't actually exist and names that can't actually be spoken outrightly, and this is what they're actually referring to, okay? There are no aliens. We are the aliens, okay? MK Ultra cover stories. This technology has interacted with quite a large amount of people. However, it is almost always misidentified as other sources. directed energy weapon cover stories. Number 1, mental illness as an electronic harassment cover story. Blowing the whistle and exposing this occult for who and what they really are. Evil, sadistic. They need to be banned. They need to be canceled. They need to be hung for treason, okay? And they need to be protested against vigorously. This can be done, and this is done. This 5th generation warfare is actually an electronic holocaust, to put it simply. This can be done by hacking and compromising the computer systems, installing spyware and malware synchronized with the PSYOP, synchronized with the psychological operations street theater that include abusing technology for psyche profiling, used to facilitate trauma-based mind control, no-touch torture, artificial flashbacks, shocks, and trauma therapy, like shock therapy, and to facilitate an electronic holocaust, just to list a few. Alright, so the truth behind multiple personality disorder is hidden in Chapter 18's instruction manual for community gang stalkers, which is in fact a Project Monarch programming and disassociation as a result of covert psychotherapy testing and psychological warfare. You all need to research this for yourself. Instead of calling me crazy because of your lack of intelligence, go do some research. Instead of watching porn, go do some research. Thank you. So I am actually, this whole entire program for today is dedicated on this Project Monarch programming. This is something that is so deep that it is emotionally challenging for me to even bear to get through. But I know my God does not call weak-minded individuals with fragile egos and weak spirits. No. So we will get through this. Even if it takes 3 episodes, we're going to get through this. We're going to expose how these programs are designed long ahead of time, before a child, or even if you would like to say, if you prefer to call yourself a chosen child of God, is even born. So this is what this program is dedicated to. Specifically today, I'm going to focus primarily on exposing this Project Monarch program. That is the core, that is the basis, that is the foundation for creating a docile slave, and specifically for creating a docile sex slave. This is the main reason why men are addicted to porn and sex and drugs, and why women and children are abused, raped, and tortured. This is the gist of it all. right here. And so if I do the best that I can to detach emotionally from all of these black ops and covert psychological operations that are occurring in and around my life every single day at every single moment. But if I get to the point where I curse, please excuse me. I do the best I can to edit this, but I don't have all day, every day. I'm not as skilled as the rest of the YouTubers that are actually lying, getting paid to cover up these crimes against humanity. That's what they're doing on YouTube in the first place, because they're sponsored by the state and they are actually lying. That includes the doctor, that includes the police, that actually, if you've ever noticed, they usually, typically, ordinarily don't say anything at all. If you've ever paid attention, police don't speak. They don't have YouTube channels. Okay? And this also includes the pastor, believe it or not. So, we're going to start with this Project Monarch programming before it is even conceived. Because this is the alien technology that the enemy is using and abusing in order to market, campaign, and control every single earthling before they are even born. This is a mental processing disorder. The victim, embryo, infant, child. It wasn't tortured enough, and it still remains conscious. I'm going to explain. Dissociative identity disorder. This is what the doctor is going to claim, falsely claim and accuse the victim of the psychological attrition. It's going to say that you have all of this. A mental processing disorder, dissociative identity disorder. False memory syndrome is what they instill into their victims. So by the time you get home from work, you've already got all of these false memories that are implanted that cause you to have a syndrome. So you think your day is going one way, when in all actuality, it is going the opposite direction. Fake records and documents manufactured by the CIA to cover and conceal the trafficking, the slavery, and the crimes, the hate crimes, collective and covert, against humanity. Fake records and documents. This has been done to me. I know this from experience. I don't need to watch the news or research anything. I know this from first-hand experience. Fake records and documents manufactured by the CIA. So the enemy thinks that we're all weak, helpless, and hopeless. The enemy literally is so weak that it doesn't even stand for itself. It puts actors and actresses disguised as innocent bystanders in order to lobby and stand in its place. That's how weak it actually is. All right, so fake records and documents manufactured by the CIA. This will be done to suppress everything about their victims. If the motherly instinct is too strong, the mom may be prescribed tranquilizers so that there is not a stable house, ensuring the child's hatred or illness. An instability for front altars to grow up in, which will start with blaming the mother for everything. This is all intentional. This is all premeditated. Bear with me. They prefer to choose their victims born out of wedlock so that it is a bastard. That is a part of the programming. That is a part of their Project Monarch programming. Look it up, Google it, research it for yourself. This stuff that I talk about, I don't just research, I study it thoroughly. I am studying it right now. This breaks God's commandment on adultery and also gives them more leverage to destroy the victim's self-esteem. So in order for them to create a docile slave or docile pliable sex slave, it needs to and prefers to have the baby born out of wedlock so that it can weaponize the esteem in order to control it as an adult and as a child. Doing the Lord's work here on this program. Thank God for all the truth that I expose. Thank God for all the work that I do. Thank God for men and women like myself who stand above the rest, not below. You can't do what I do. You're stuck to a script. That's how much of a slave you are. You could never be me, and I don't want to be you, no matter how much you distort or manipulate my reality. That is a fact. This entire occult ritual involves generational curses which are spoken and unspoken during Illuminati ceremonies. Ceremonial pacts which concern having the child out of wedlock to mock God are made. During Illuminati ceremonies, ceremonial pacts which concern having the child out of wedlock to mock God are made. So another one of the things, interesting things that I wanted to mention is how every single thing that Hollywood produces is a result of these programs that I'm exposing. So Hollywood is complicit in all of this. In order for all of this to be done, there needs to be a hierarchy of elitists at the top telling the doctors, telling the police what to say, what to do, how to harass a TI, and so on and so forth. Every single person in Hollywood, all of their movies, it comes down to this. It boils down to this. All of their songs, it all boils down to this. This is it right here. This isn't even possible without Hollywood. Entertainment was designed as a distraction. Point blank, period. Everything that you're consuming, every ounce of content that you consume that comes from or out of Hollywood, that is produced by Hollywood, is satanic, is demonic, is Luciferian, is rape culture. Absolutely. So like I already said, this breaks God's commandment on adultery and also gives them more leverage to destroy the victim's self-esteem. This entire occult ritual involves generational curses which are spoken and unspoken. During Illuminati ceremonies, ceremonial pacts which concern having the child out of wedlock to mock God, are made. Jesus, ufology, and alien cover stories are all just a few examples of how the CIA systematically alienate bastards from the rest of society for these programs. Most parts of the victim will never even hear the Lord's name. Victims will only hear the voice of its master, who will someday be presented to victims as, quote, God. In the context of an abusive relationship, the aggressor, motivated by money and fueled by power, then becomes the master or handler. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. In the home, this applies to the male breadwinner. Much later, great attention will be given to set up staged events to ensure that the victim or the child being programmed hates God, hates its mother and family, and fears the truth. The victim will have its senses profiled primarily using directed energy weapons and overwhelmed repeatedly with psychological operations, social engineering, attacks, neurolinguistic programming, electromagnetic shock therapy, to the point that it learns to overreact to the added highly charged traumatic stimulus adhered by the torturers working for the CIA. They're all murderers. Murderers, 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 murderers. In the home or in the abusive relationship, this begins with extreme negligence, isolation, and deprivation. I suppose if you were raised by a narcissistic or a psychosadist parent, then this role applies to that dynamic relationship. The promise of one thing while producing another, using obsessive repetition to coerce mentally the slave, being brainwashed by lies, manipulation, and military deception. Breaking the mind down into pieces and then rewiring or shocking with hoovering, stalking, sexual trauma, fear, and terror. Creating mental disassociation. So, essentially, the psyop that's being ran, and the reason why I can't leave my home, because I will go to jail. Like, I know the truth about what it is that is taking place and occurring in and around my life. These covert military bases and all of these so-called innocent bystanders that are actually guilty for crimes against humanity that are actually terrorists. Because I know the truth of the psychological operation that's being ran in and around my life, I will go to jail if I leave the house, because I will beat the living daylights, the shit, out of one of these things. And they know it too. So in any case, to continue, this is creating, it comes around literally to create a mental disassociation. This has been done before these targets are even born. A programmable slave, a demon who hates God, a person demonically possessed. In this context, this is referred to as alternate personality disorder. Cover stories involving these are often referred to as alternate realities, parallel universes, etc. A demon idolizes fleshly and worldly desires. If somebody is like this, it is demonically possessed. If it's a sex addict, a porn addict, if it is obsessed with your ass, it is a demon who idolizes fleshly and worldly desires. It is not even a person at this point. It is a mutating subspecies, and it belongs to a subculture, a counterculture, a rape culture. It's not a person, because it doesn't have a personality. The victim's mind exists in broken pieces, compartmentalized, psychologically incarcerated in mental cages that are accessible by the torturers or aka programmers and serve as traumatic or spiritual, quote, ley lines. Everything imaginable can be used to overwhelm the, quote, mentally caged victim's senses and create disassociation and an overwhelming sense of being trapped, forced, coerced, backed into a corner, and unable to cope. Together, all of this will provide the dissociative base for splitting the core. Multiple personality disorder, monarch programming, disassociation. They don't want you knowing this information because this is all true. This is all facts. You can research this for yourself, okay? Instead of calling me crazy, do some research, retard. Governments who want to disassociative children in order to program them into becoming biological weapons. to serve this New World Order agenda. Learned that dissociative babies could be born if the child in the womb is tortured. Thin needles are inserted through the mother into the fetus to prick the preborn child. Mothers who are pregnant with children to be programmed are also severely traumatized during their pregnancy with a whole assortment of traumas, which simultaneously traumatizes the baby which they carry. For those of you who were unaware, this is why I miscarried. I was being slapped around in my face, and the stress caused me to lose my baby. That's why I was at the clinic. And ultimately, I made the decision to terminate that pregnancy. This is why. So this is all true. I don't need to do any research. I'm quite literally living it. I'm the living example of how this is being done. To continue, for instance, the father may purposely abandon the baby, purposely abandon the mother, or blast the mother with loud, frightening music, and then follow this up with love. The victim can have and will have its senses overwhelmed repeatedly to the point that it learns to react to its surroundings, because it's a product of its environment, by what appears on the outside as numbness, and mentally is simply disassociation. Or in more severe cases, like if they know the truth about it, the situation, like I do, they might actually verbally say something and accuse these aggressors, this occult. They might call their aggressors out in public, out to the street. Oh yes. And you know what's funny? They never have what it takes to meet the victim toe to toe out in the street. When it's called out, it never has what it takes to actually get down. It's not a real warrior, okay? It's acting on behalf of whoever it's standing in place for, because whoever it's standing in place for is too weak to stand in its place for itself. To continue, it's not crazy at all when you consider the black ops and the covert crimes, hate crimes, collective and covert, that are taking place in and around the secret military base that is set up to systematically oppress a child of God, a chosen child of God. A targeted individual is a chosen child of God. Okay? They are not crazy. They are not homeless. There's quite literally an entire psychological operation to starve them and to force them to become homeless, to deprive them of their right to life so that they will give up on life and commit suicide. That's the idea here. That's the end game here. Everything imaginable can and will be used to overwhelm the psychologically imprisoned, caged victim's senses and create disassociation. Senses: smell, rotten, foul odors of the victim's excrement, of ammonia and rotten food while it huddles in its cage, will overwhelm the victim's senses of smell. Now, I laugh when it says while it huddles in its cage, because whoever wrote this clearly gets sexual gratification from this and is exaggerating when it says while it huddles in its cage. And so that's why I went ahead and just said a mental cage, because this is a psychological war. The war remains the war for the mind. The enemy and Satan, they're out for the mind. That's it. That's how you corrupt somebody's soul, is by putting intrusive thoughts in their mind. This type of programming right here is how it is being done. Do your research before you call me crazy. Thank you, baby. You're not smart for calling me crazy. You're dumb. Taste. Being fed blood overwhelms the victim's sense of taste. In the Christian community, this is practiced by eating the flesh and drinking the blood of Jesus Christ. Cite vampire, zombies, cannibalism, TV, and in movies, and algorithms as well are used to simulate this overwhelming of the victim's sense of sight. Being forced to watch food rotting, starving children, abuse, sexual battery, porn, television is used to reintroduce phobias, shocks, and traumas such as fear of rats or mice. With cartoons like Mickey Mouse and Tom and Jerry, ants and spiders with movies like Spider-Man and Ant-Man, etc. So I just wanted to mention also as well, all of the news is a distraction. It's not real. It's all manufactured. It's facilitating an electronic holocaust. Props like synchronized color clothing, vehicles with something strange about them, animals, hair color, and nail color are used to reinforce the trauma. For example, what color you wore when you last used the bathroom will be mocked by these programmers in street theater. What color clothing you wore the last time you had sex, etc. Those are just 2 examples, okay? Being forced to relive trauma, pain, injury, and illness, exposure therapy, or any exposure therapy focusing or refocusing on trauma to reintroduce the trauma. Hearing the chanting of the programmers dressed in satanic garb, banging noises, rock music, the electric hum, and ultrasonic stimulation overwhelms the victim's sense of hearing. So the neighbors in this community and pretty much everywhere else like to use their vehicles. They overcompensate using their vehicles because they are nothing and nobody. They have the right to feel the need to overcompensate because they are literally the scum of the fucking earth. That vehicle that they own does not belong to them. They owe more restitutions than their lives are even worth combined. Being forced to overhear abuse, trauma themes, or anchors. Touch. The child's natural developing sense of safety is taken advantage of by spinning the victim and making it feel like it is going to fall, or dropping the child, for example. Overwhelming the victim's sense of touch. Sleep. The victim will also be deprived of sleep and dragged. Wow. Together, all of this will provide the dissociative base for splitting the core. So the psychotherapist knows exactly what they are doing to drive a targeted individual mentally insane. The 4th stage is to strip the victim of everything nice and lovely in the world. The victim is isolated and tormented by electric shock. The victim's senses will be overloaded and they will become numb. Eyewitnesses have described these hundreds of numbed victims as, quote, zombies. They're the ones that you see in the doctor's office, glued, eyeballs glued to the phone screen. A lot of them are doing that intentionally so they can have a distraction, so they don't look noticeably out of place, because they are not supposed to be there harassing in the first place. It is a crime against humanity. This stage and the programming put in after the foundational dissociation is created will form the next chapter. This is something that I'm going to be going over very thoroughly. Matter of fact, I have a whole nother show coming up that I've dedicated to just the hoovering narcissist, how the FBI uses hoovers to cause this disassociation, the Hoover maneuver. And I'm going to be doing a whole show on that as well. I'm going to go over this thoroughly. If this doesn't come out right the first time I do it, that's totally fine. If this doesn't come out right the second or third time that I've recorded, totally fine. If this doesn't come out right the 10th or the 20th time, totally fine. You know why? I have no intention of quitting or stopping this channel or the topics that I discuss on it. Ever. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to live on the internet forever, indefinitely. In the fourth step, the victim is starved, cold, and naked. When they finally see their beloved master or beloved occult caretaker appear after suffering for 42 to 72 hours, they are excited and they disassociate the pain of the previous hours of isolation and deprivation. Let me say that again. When the victim finally sees their beloved master or beloved occult caretaker. Now, the reason why I put this, instead of putting parent or partner, because of the corruption, there is no parent. They don't have a parent. Okay? It's nothing but an occult. The parent is acting on behalf of the slave master that controls it. And the abuse is being done by the parent at the behest of the sexual gratification and for the purpose of the sexual gratification of the sadistic handler, occult master, or slave owner. I mean, there's really no other way to put this. Why would I put parent or partner when it belongs to a rape culture? It's not a fucking parent. It's not a partner. The fuck? The only purpose it serves is to punish and torment the scapegoat, the victim. That's not a parent. The reason why these children are being molested is because that so-called parent is allowing it to happen in the first place, inviting the enemy into his home. Come on, that's not a parent. That ain't a partner. Somebody that uses you to get attention from fucking honeypots from an enemy. That's not a partner. It is controlled, entirely controlled by its handler, which is its fear and sex trauma. One of the things that I'm also working on, that I'm going to go on to cover thoroughly on my program, is how when you go to research all of these toxic, abusive behaviors that are perpetuated by narcissism and covert narcissists alike, everybody belonging to this occult, when you go to research this on YouTube, you will find psychotherapists that are lying, that have to lie, that have been sworn to secrecy. Because you cannot know the truth. You are a slave. You simply do not have enough money to afford the truth. That is the truth. So at any rate, if you go to research any of these abusive behaviors and the patterns behind them, you will start to realize that each and every YouTube influencer, state-paid psychotherapist tends to blame the abuse on the childhood trauma that was intentional sabotage. And the reason why they always blame the childhood trauma is because that childhood trauma, abusive, intentional sabotage, was done on purpose to anchor every single victim to that trauma so that they can be controlled, manipulated, and tormented forever. Another one of the things that I have, a problem that I have with all of these psychotherapists on YouTube, is that they never give you the resources that are needed to obtain safety and restitutions so that you can go on to live a normal, healthy, regular life. They never ever give you any resources as to how do you afford an attorney to file for restitutions and file a civil violation against the government. There are no resources, there are no links, there are no attorneys. Who can you call to get this lawsuit started? Nobody. They're not really there to help you. They are actually taking this information from you and then using it to blackmail you, harass you until you become suicidal. Just like the Catholic Church uses the confession booth, and it was initially created for the same exact purpose by the CIA and other governmental agencies, so that they can take the information that you give them in the confession booth and then use it to blackmail you. Alright, so when the victim finally sees their beloved master or beloved occult caretaker appear after suffering from 42 to 72 hours, they are excited and they disassociate the pain of the previous hours of isolation and deprivation. This is done, like, for instance, when the quote-unquote partner has to work overtime, like a weekend where he should be at home. Like a weekend that has a holiday on it, like Easter or Christmas. They do this intentionally to isolate and deprive you. This is all trafficking. This is all evil. Help appears to be on the scene. At that point, the programmer, beloved adult, or partner shows his or her most vicious side, and the victim, in order to deal with how this loving partner or caretaker has not only rejected them for the occult, for the rape culture, but is now hurting them, disassociates along the same fractures of disassociation created by the initial childhood trauma since before they were even born, and therefore after. The details of how the mind is split will be dealt with further in the next chapter. In review of steps 3 and 4, part of the programming is to have the primary initial abuser bond with the victim. This will be the case for every trafficked victim. And while it's profiting the most off of exploiting you, it is slandering you. It is assassinating your character, because instead of giving you the love and respect and recognition that you've earned and deserve, it is isolating you and depriving you from that to make you look crazy, so that way nobody believes you when you come out about the abuse. In order to conceal its crimes, its abuse. It is abusive. If there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, and it is saying that you are crazy, the reason why it says that is, number one, because it is a Nazi. I don't care what color it is. A narcissist who gaslights is a Nazi, a white supremacist terrorist. And number two, it's done to conceal its crimes and abuse. Because if it's really good at manipulating, then nobody in the community will believe you because you look crazy and unstable, emotionally unstable. This is all a part of the programming. And while it's sexually exploiting its most profitable trafficked victim or sex slave, it will tell the sex slave lies. So you need to understand that all of this, you're too old, nobody wants you, it's a lie. You're the top selling, best that they've got, most exciting to exploit, so on and so forth. Top rated, top tier talent, not bottom. is trying to sit over here and program everybody to put you last, because the truth is the exact contrast from that lie. You are number one, baby. And the enemy is mad. Rightfully so. You earned it. Take it to the bank. A close, loving bond is needed between a victim and the initial abuser so that a clean split is created when the initial mind-splitting trauma is carried out. The algorithm can then mirror the initial mind-splitting trauma with captions like, quote, mind-blowing, as the mind-controlling cover story, as a cover story for the mind-controlling psyop. The clean split occurs when the victim is confronted with two irreconcilable opposing viewpoints of someone who is important to them. The victim cannot reconcile the two extremely opposite views of the same person of being a loving caretaker and the other one being the worst kind of abuser. The person the victim trusted the most is the person the victim fears the most. Some professional therapists have come to realize that this is how the core is split. The rape is intentionally brutal so that it will be as traumatic as possible. Victims are gangbanged. You know, while I'm on this tip, I just wanted to mention how many sex slaves are on OnlyFans and Pornhub right now without the free will to delete their account. Sad. Monarch slaves are regularly abused at the Grove and in the community for the entertainment of Bohemian Grove members in kinky sex theme rooms such as the Dark Room and the Necrophilia Room. Secret New World Order business is conducted in the small dark lounge with a wooden sign naming it Underground. Slaves are hunted for sport, which is currently happening to me right now. And when I came out about my targeting, you all called me crazy. That's fucking bananas. Slaves are hunted for sport and occult rituals, including infant sacrifice, human sacrifice, and mock death rituals are held outdoors in the Grove and in the community. A garden of evil. In 1954, Maslow published his hierarchy of needs, which when applied to monarchs and PTSD victims means that they cannot process in therapy until their survival and safety needs are met. Okay, so every single person telling me that I need help, slap yourself. Slap your handler. Slap your fucking master. Slaps all the fucking way around. Let me say it again. Monarchs and PTSD victims cannot process in therapy until their survival and safety needs are met. So therapy is completely pointless until their survival and safety needs are met. Fucking idiots. However, the programmers, also known as abusers, psychotherapists, and police, know that it is important to keep the slave far away from safety. The programmers, also known as abusers, psychotherapists, and police, any family, any loved ones, husband, wife, brother, sister, cousin, auntie, grandma, grandpa, or child, silent operative, working for the programmers who abuse the scapegoat at the behest for the sexual gratification of the programmers, also known as psychotherapists and police. They all know that it is important to keep the slave as far away from safety as possible. So they will encourage you to get back with your rapist. They will encourage you to go back to the man who abuses you so that you can continue to be abused. Thank you. Doctors are always shocked to see victims in their offices, and often this is where the victim is set up to be tortured or programmed further. To this end, the programmers employ people externally to monitor slaves. These are called gang stalkers, and internal alters in the victim's mind to be monitoring alters and reporting alters. This is all sadistic. Reporting alters can always reach the network of abusers via 1-800 telephone numbers, which change every 2 weeks. How convenient! They also call their handlers. So technically, a victim of this should have no technological device whatsoever. And should, if they do use a technological device, change their number and get a brand new phone every 2 weeks. And even then, it's not going to stop this. But this is what they do to conceal and protect their identities, to make sure that no real terrorist psychopath comes for them and kills them all in an act of revenge and self-defense. Whoo, child. Ain't that what every single movie on Netflix is about? Isn't that what every single movie on Prime is about? Come on. They also can call their handler. Alters programmed to commit suicide are also built into the systems. This is so sick, because this is what is being done to myself. So the idea generally here is to harass the victim to the point of insanity, to the brink of insanity, and so that the only way to get the torture to stop is by committing suicide. It's not a real act of suicide, it's a synthetic suicide programming. And usually this is done by introducing drugs, and then it'll be via some sort of a drug overdose, so that everybody involved in this corruption scandal, this conspiracy, so that they can all say that this was some sort of tragic accidental overdose, accidental suicide. My fucking ass bullshit, bitch. To undo the programming, the victim needs safety. So these domestic violence shelters, these homeless shelters, these mental, psychological hospitals, these mental hospitals, and jail, pretty much it's all the same thing, or 10 times more dangerous than staying in the abusive home with the abusive parent or the abusive quote-unquote partner. And this is all systemically done intentionally to sabotage the victim, to cause them to die in the gutter, to be found dead in a gutter, dead in a street somewhere. Nobody knows. Everybody's just so fucking high on meth. Everybody's just so fucking strung out in their emotions because they seen some fucking ass in yoga pants. Everybody's just so fucking addicted to porn. God damn. Now, nobody knows what happened. She's just, accidentally died somehow. Fuck. So it's actually more dangerous for the victim to go into these programs, into these shelters, into these hospitals, wherever it is, into jail. Domestic violence shelters as well, they're the worst. It's actually more dangerous for them to be there. And to undo the programming, the victim needs safety. Number one. Safety. Number one. So every single thing that a silent operative or a covert narcissist who is secretly pushing this agenda covertly, every single thing they say about going to rehab, No. Safety is number one. That's it. To undo the programming, the victim needs safety. Number one. Not rehab, not DV shelter. No. Those are more dangerous, not less. To undo the programming, the victim needs safety. The programmers know this and have set up almost fail-safe methods where the victim is not even safe from their own system of alters, loved ones, family and friends, let alone Big Brother. At this point, it is mentioned in the context of this chapter to establish to the reader and to my viewers that the abuse and the torture continue nonstop. This is premeditated homicide. I'm owed restitutions. Thank you. Some of this would naturally occur anyways, but the programmers enhance this naturally occurring phenomena manyfold to ensure that the slave will continually abuse themselves. Those traumatic memories which shattered the mind the first time are still capable of doing it again when they are abreacted, that is, relived by the body and mind. Psyop and algorithm simulating. Being locked in a small confined spot, room, car, a pit or cage, with spiders, snakes, rats, roaches, mice, feces, blood, especially sex, from sex or menstrual cycles. Matter of fact, I was watching a movie the other day and it was called Songbird and Snakes, Hunger Games. All of these movies are about these psychological operations, these cult wars that are occurring, that are currently taking place. So all of these movies are about this right here. So the idea is to starve it to the point where it will kill you for a fucking sandwich. Literally, that's what Hunger Games is about. Being forced to kill and cut up and eat innocent victims. Again with the Hunger Games, here we go. Having to deal with all of this is crazy. And so in any case, this is the real reason why you get psychopaths that gun down a school or gun down a hospital or gun down whatever. Whatever the news is saying that they're doing is probably a cover story. In any case, they're probably using an actress and they keep the identity of the real shooter confidential so that they can protect themselves because they provoked that shooter in the first place by starving it to death. Got it so starved that it'll literally kill you for a fucking sandwich. I'm dead. I'll kill you for a beer, bitch. Dead. All right, so immersion into feces, urine, and containers of blood, then being made to eat these things. Cuckoo bananas. By the way, when the victim is placed into a small space with spiders or snakes, they will often be told that if they play dead, the snake will not bite them. This carries out two things for the programmers. It lays the basis for suicide programs. An example, quote, if you are dead, then you are safe, end quote, type of thinking. And it teaches the victim or child to disassociate. And the victim is eventually stripped of every spiritual or emotional resource by a variety of traumas, such as, quote, blood orgies, where male and female genitals are cut, torture sessions on all types of torture machines, staged events where actors imitating God, Jesus Christ, police, and therapists curse the victim, reject the victim, and even, quote, kill the victim in simulated drug deaths and mock death rituals. Victims are placed in hospitals in captive, abusive conditions. Victims are tied to innocent victims, which are systemically and brutally killed. Okay, victims are tied to innocent victims, which are systematically and brutally killed, while the victim is made to believe that they are guilty for the victim's death and punishment. Family members are also manipulated and blame the innocent victim. Near-death experiences such as drowning have become an art form with these abusers/murderers. Trained dogs, monkeys, and other animals are used to further traumatize the victim. The victim is not in a position to flee, so the mind disassociates. Many of the traumas and tortures are carried out by alters or persons who are sadistic. These sadists get a laugh at hurting innocent victims. The more pain, the more adrenaline. Adrenaline junkies get a thrill or a charge of excitement and sexual gratification. Psychosadists derive from it. Sadists enjoy gaining total control over their victims. In order to do this, they take charge over the innocent victim's basic bodily functions such as sleep, eating, and pooping or peeing. They enjoy terrorizing the victims, so monarch slaves end up watching hours of sadistic behavior done to others before they are even 5 years old. At work and in the home or abusive relationship, monarch slaves end up watching hours of sadistic sexual behavior done to others, and at times for up to even 5 hours per day before returning into the family home. The worse the trauma, the more the sadistic programmers enjoy watching it. Sensory deprivation, forced labor, poisoning, and rape of every orifice of the victim are popular tortures by the programmers. The victim soon learns that he or she is at the mercy of crazy people who can only be satisfied by total submission, gross, and the willingness to allow someone else to think for you. The victim will be forced to watch or to eat feces, blood, or other disgusting things, and even starve while the programmer eats good meals. When the victim's crying is heard, they immediately apply torture so the victim thinks it will suffocate. This behavior modification trains the victim not to cry, and also this applies to sex as well. So this behavior modification trains the victim not to come. This behavior modification trains the victim not to cry. Usually, I've noticed they use white vehicles to harass, to apply this torture. This white vehicle and the color of it really does symbolize clear and white bodily fluids. So any time of I have been crying or a victim of this has been crying, or anytime a male is coming either in the relationship or outside, I will be harassed. The victim of this will be harassed, and usually the method of applying torture is just simply a white or several white vehicles that are gang stalking and harassing. A lot of times they will have a missing headlight even. Now bear with me because this next part gets really nasty. While raping the victim, the programmers will describe their fluid as, quote, honeycomb, and will cry out hallelujah when they come. It doesn't take long for the victim to realize it has no ability to resist what is being done to it. The will of the victim is destroyed, and in its place remains a pliable slave. The mind of the victim is not only divided from itself, but the very process of torture makes the victim distrustful of humans in general. On top of this distrust, the programmers will layer in programming to isolate the person from healthy relationships, which in turn increases the victim's feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. The ritual aspect of trauma needs to be covered. By re-traumatizing someone on a specific day, say repeatedly traumatizing them on their birthday, is far more damaging than just simply traumatizing them. The reason is that every time that person's birthday recycles, they are put back into their memories of abuse. The hardest bonding to break within Illuminati slaves is the bond to their incestual father. Also, the network has some high-tech equipment which stimulates the orgiastic state, sexual ecstasy part of the brain. So these sexual fantasies that men are obsessively having are actually schizophrenic hallucinations. To continue, by moving the body into this state, the mind opens up all unconscious states. Then sophisticated brainwave machines program thoughts into the person. So the way that you think and the way that you feel is not the way that you think or the way that you truly feel. A computer is used to start the electric shock machine. So technology is being used to start the electric shock machine to shock the nervous system. Sexual abuse is a common trauma used to split the core. In order to split the core, the mind has to be trained to disassociate. With monarch sex slaves, they were to receive daily traumas to keep them disassociative. So the male partner is receiving all day at work, non-stop. He's a sex slave. Every single man who leaves their wife, abuses them, that's all for this purpose right here, to push this demonic agenda. So with monarch sex slaves, that's what Geron is. That's what every male will become, inevitably, because they will be completely mind wiped. If I'm in a relationship with a male partner in the future, it will attempt to do the very same thing and has already laid down the foundation for this to happen in future relationships and so on and so forth. With monarch sex slaves, so this is the male sex porn addict in the relationship, they were to receive daily sexual harassments and traumas to keep them disassociative. So all day at work, talking to girls, all day at work. Literally, these girls are coming around just to flash their asses to keep the male monarch sex slave disassociative. This is why they're on such a power trip when they come home at the end of the day from all of the mind wiping and brainwashing and programming and sexual harassment. from all of the honeypots working this psychological operation and facilitating this Holocaust and genocide. This is why the female will be abused for the sexual gratification of the sadists, traffickers, programmers, etc. A military base is set up around these victims to test, quote, new weapons and for other testing, not just for weapons, but for other testing as well. Most people don't realize how premeditated all the trauma and torture is. Most people don't realize how premeditated all the trauma and torture is. Pawns are used to help justify the criminal activities of the programmers should they ever be found out behind their cover of, quote, national security. These are usually state-paid snitches that will take the witness stand and lie and testify, falsely accuse the victim to cover for the police running the entrapment operation. All the primary tortures carried out on a slave are coded using dates, numbers, and anchors so that the memories can be pulled up to the front altar by the programmers. As one leading psychiatrist put it, quote, different ideologies use the same methodologies of mind control, end quote. Monarch slave Kathy O'Brien was used to make both the film How to Divide a Personality and How to Create a Sex Slave. But what was admitted in the spirit of covering up the extent of the full truth. They want men who they believe will not develop any qualms later on in life about what they have done. In order to produce this compliance, incentives are often tendered, such as sex and drugs. A man who waits until his daughter is a teenager to molest her is usually esteemed to have too much conscience for the programmers. And you can say this in any context you'd like. A man who waits for his cousin, sister, niece, granddaughter. This can be said many different ways. This is just one micro example. So, a man who waits until his daughter is a teenager to molest her is usually esteemed to have too much conscience for the programmers. The CIA is a front for the Illuminati, and the CIA in turn sets up fronts. Some of those fronts are elaborate, well-staffed, well-equipped programming sites, such as many of the state mental hospitals. So these would all be this is the cover story for this would fall under like Area 51. The bases that are being created around these victims are the real Area 51. The fronts that are ran by these organizations to torture these victims would also fall under a cover story, guys, of ufology, Area 51 again, and just other so-called quote-unquote underground bases allegedly. The Illuminati couldn't do it alone without all of its fronts. So essentially, when a targeted individual or a victim of this ritual abuse, this occult ritual, scapegoating, and other abuse, torment, when somebody like myself, because these programs are actually trying to coerce a victim, a slave like myself, into committing suicide. The Illuminati couldn't do it alone without its fronts. This procedure of basically curing or attempting to treat trauma with trauma didn't change when Joseph Mengele came over. The programming just jumped from being an occult science to one that had full access to the medical, psychiatric, judicial, scientific, and governmental sectors via the power of the National Security Act and the intelligence agencies. Those who haven't learned obedience are forced into ritual, gladiator-type duels or other punishments to eliminate them. So, love then becomes the battlefield. So the war is staged and set up within the romantic relationship. That is also why it is a sexually and politically motivated hate crime. Some children live in foster homes or with adopted parents or in orphanages or with caretakers and guardians. Because these children are at the mercy of the non-related adults. These types of children, I didn't write this, I would never call it these types of children, pardon me, are frequently sold to become mind-controlled slaves of the intelligence agencies, kind of like you see in Dexter. Although this does not exclusively apply to foster children alone, methods will be used to coerce victims into mirroring the mind control program to ensure the victim is being tortured by everyone in the family and in the community. All of the senses are trained for building the mirror images. For instance, such as silks and cottons can be used for the sense of touch. The victim will have to match textures. This is just one example. The programmers will teach the victim to have good abilities in copying, reflecting, repeating, echoing or re-echoing, mirroring, and then reframing. Methods will be used to coerce victims into mirroring the mind control program to ensure the victim is being tortured by everyone in the family, home, and community. They will be taught for hours how to re-echo something verbatim. Reflector vests are a common technique used to influence the process of echoing and reflective materials. For example, some of these teaching methods are almost like games, and games are used. Methods are used to greatly suppress the victim's intelligence and creativity. The Illuminati will also work on enhancing their psychic abilities, such as telepathy and clairvoyance. An unstructured mind of the slave is likened to a house without walls. A house undisciplined is like unto a house without walls. It will crumble within itself. A house divided against itself will not stand. A house divided against itself will not stand is found in the Gospel of Mark, specifically in Mark 3:25. It is not a personality disorder because it is not a person, it is a program. John Gettinger designed the personality assessment system. This is an extraordinary method used to evaluate human behavior and predict their future behavior. The activity level of a person at each point in their life is also measured. The intensity of each of the scores is also rated. So every time you're watching porn, for instance, for example, the activity level of that pornographic material consumption of a person at each point, at this point and otherwise in their life, is measured. The intensity of each of the scores is also rated. So it's not only profiling your psyche with this alien technology, it also knows how you feel and is measuring that and also rating that with some sort of a score. So that's just one example. There's tons. I'm not going to get into it right now. The past shows what a person wants and focuses on the lack of that thing to create disassociation via deprivation. An example: sex, money, love, promotion, food, etc., just to name a few. And of course, drugs, sex, money, love, and drugs being probably like the top. And these are called the soft spots of a person's personality. I mean, I think we call these insecurities, actually. Also, the past shows mental weaknesses on where a person will be unstable and can be broken down. So, in other words, when you are having an emotional breakdown or meltdown, crying, that'll be when they apply that specific torture the most to set you up, so that way you'll be weaker and more insecure and broken deep down inside. And it's because of the torment. Certain types of stresses will have a cumulative effect of hurting a person. A stress-producing campaign, it's actually probably worse, I think, than physical abuse. That's why it's being done. That's why they're using this. And of course, a person only dies once. Where's the fun in that? There's no fun for a sadist in killing. Who cares? Like, that once that's done, it's done. It's already over. They want this person to suffer, be tormented, and then die. It's very, very, very calculated, meticulous, organized crime on a massive fucking scale. A stress-producing campaign is run against CIA targets, and by doing this, they can neutralize a potential enemy. If the victim is good in math, it will have its programming scripts steered in that direction to corrupt the data. If it has artistic brainwaves, then the programmer will use artwork in the programming. If it has addiction and struggles with codependencies, almost all of them will because of the programming, then the program will use sex and drugs in the programming for that victim. In-game technology packaged under persuasive spiritual warfare illusions. Whew, child. Directed energy interaction packaged as the supernatural. Government technology under a cosmic being facade. Religious-themed illusions using religion mythology as a means for cover stories. Extraterrestrial contact as a psychological operation cover story. So when you guys are hearing all of these ET contacts or whatever it is, it's actually just either a man or a woman posing as an innocent bystander, and it is serving the purpose of attacking you using directed energy weaponry and other trickery to manipulate, deceive you, and to derail you, pretty much to also slow you down and to deprive you. There's so many things going on here. It's fucking insane. Literally, it's insane. Extraterrestrial contact as a psychological operation cover story. So, like having sex with phantoms, having these obsessive sexual fantasies. Ghosts as a cover story. AI orchestrated phantom illusions. In-game technology as a sorcerer cover story. In-game technology as the real source behind effective voodoo. Witchcraft as a directed energy cover story. Black project science under a black magic cover story. Directed energy attacks deceptively packaged as physiological elements. Synthetic signals in the brain from implants framed as physiological elements. Quote, psychic attack as a directed energy attack cover story. Quote, spiritual attack as a directed energy attack cover story. New Age cover stories, an example, disembodied spirit illusions. Old Age mythological gods used as a cover story. Human-based electronic harassment with aliens packaged as the perpetrator. Yeah, right. Our government thinks we believe in little gray aliens, little green aliens, little gray guys. No, we don't believe in that. We know it's you. Scientology methods as a cover story for technological remote influence. Exotic neural body illusions, an example, chakra entity attachments, ethereal implants. Interdimensional, these are all cover stories for directed energy, weapons, programs, and mind control psyops. Exotic neural body illusions. Okay, yeah. An example, chakra, entity attachment, ethereal implants. Interdimensional being interaction as an electronic targeting cover story. So if you see any of these popping up in your algorithms, they're all simulating the psychological operation. Exploitation of illusory explanations to conceal directed energy crimes. Beings impersonated. Neighbors, targeted individual V2K. Black Ops agents, targeted individual V2K. That means they're being controlled by a synthetic voice of God technology. Let's see, family targeted individuals V2K. So this is meaning that they're coming around to perform these satanic Luciferian Brotherhood rituals. They're actually participating in it, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Deceased loved ones, deceased relatives, deceased pets, psyops, V2K, and the family being targeted individual via V2K. Really, honestly, that's even if you're lucky enough to have any family remaining. This is war. Like, who has family? So, a lot of the times when you see me recording and I'm having any human interaction whatsoever, it is impersonating, number one, the black lady that you guys are always seeing in the videos, and it just looks like a normal, innocent bystander. It's actually an agent undercover performing hypnosis, forcing the victim to have artificial flashbacks. And these black women that you always see me recording that just so happen to be popping up and popping out of the frame, kind of like the way that you would see a UFO literally pop up and pop out of the video frame in these counterfeit videos that you all are watching on YouTube. So anyways, they all need to be reported. They are all a scam when you see me, because oftentimes this is kind of like where I guess one of the main fracture points for this psyop is kind of like when I lost my foster mother, but it's way deeper than that. It has to do with my own personal trauma from my own childhood. So it always resorts back to that fracture point. So all of these so-called innocent bystanders, these black women that you guys see in the video footage that I capture, that I'm always providing on my suicide prevention campaign as evidence to these hate crimes, these are actually like perpetuators of this simulated trauma theme, simulated trigger This is really honestly supposed to keep me depressed. And they're impersonating deceased loved ones, deceased foster family, deceased pets, all of this stuff. So in any case, you'll see a lot of that, and this is the reason why it's a black lady, or whatever your trauma is related to. If you just so happen to lose your mom, then it'll be a mom with her kids. Also to oppress and deprive you, because it has something you don't have currently. And I noticed a lot of this being done actually when I was in California. Anyways, to continue, demons, mind control cover story. Jinn, mind control cover stories. Archons, cover stories. Interdimensional beings, new age psyops. Interdimensional beings, new age psyops. Extraterrestrials, cosmic being, impersonation programs. The whole entire thing is an impersonation program. That's what trafficking is. That's what exploitation is. Impersonation programs, ufology, bastardization, entity attachments, new age psyops. Entity attachment would be a porn addiction. Honeypots following you around, and you can't have a relationship ever again without being harassed, because they're going to incite domestic violence. They are going to use the relationship as a weakness, and they will use that as a weapon to exploit you further. Shadow beings, an example, to cause fear from an obscure source. Archangels, to impersonate a higher authority. Lucifer, to persuade into evil. Satanist, satanist. So all of this devil worshipping that you guys are participating in on Pornhub is to persuade you into doing evil. That's exactly why you need to stop. That's why I protest against it silently, verbally, and otherwise. Ra, new age psyops, spirits, spiritual warfare illusions, especially particularly if you're somebody who is really into the BDSM torture porn. It is actually literally trying to persuade you into being a rapist, essentially. A biological weapon is a rapist. Spirits, spiritual warfare illusions, ghosts, phantoms, directed energy, trickery. This is all trickery. Fairies, rehashed old age cover stories. Higher self, mind control cover stories. Panpsychism based impersonations. An example, Gaia, aka Mother Earth, speaking to people. Saints and Mother Mary, religious impersonations. Holy Spirit, psychological direction method. Sleeper assassin method. Ascended masters, impersonation of a higher power. Spirits, spiritual warfare illusions, ghost, phantoms, directed energy, trickery, fairies, rehashed old age cover stories, higher self, mind control cover stories, panpsychism based impersonations. An example, Gaia, aka Mother Earth, speaking to people. Saints and Mother Mary, religious impersonations. Holy Spirit, psychological direction method. Sleeper assassin method. Ascended masters, impersonation of a higher power. Jesus, any vector of vulnerability is exploited. Persons of note, an example, to get a target to murder them. 2, psychologically direct. So that is what they are trying to do in the relationship. And this will be the case till the end of time for these targets, for these victims, in every relationship, with a parent, a coworker, anything and everything. They are there to deceive up until the point of death. And like it says, the greater the torment, the greater the suffering, the more sexual gratification a sadist gets or derives from it. So if one of these victims or targets is hurt or murdered by a loved one, it's worth even more, like, to these program system operators, which I call gang stalkers, because that is quite literally what they are referred to in their own handbook. Any mythological god of the past, God, Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, impersonation of the highest power done via, quote, electronic telepathy contact, also known as voice to skull. The illusion of incognito mode and gang stalking psychological operations exposed in today's program. It is such a shame being in a relationship with a male sex slave because the master or handler is using sex to control him. Everything becomes about sexually gratifying the sadistic sex trafficker and sex cult or rape culture. I am such an amazing woman and strong person for tolerating such evil. And so I just wanted to mention briefly before I sign off for the day how I was forced to quit my OnlyFans when Jerron slapped me for promoting my page. And because I was tired of the jealousy, the rivalry, and all of the torment and abuse. Let's see here. Is there anything else that I would like to add before signing off for the day? All right, so for high-profile targets, just remember that the enemy is going to arrange a hoovering narcissist or even a group of them to trigger anxiety, inciting a cycle of ritual abuse and occult ritual black magic like scapegoating. For example, high-profile targets are hoovered by CBAs, FBI, and state-paid informants 24/7. All right, so I think that's gonna do it for today's program. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you for your time. If you wouldn't mind, please like, share, subscribe, leave a friendly comment, and tip or donate. Have a beautiful and blessed day. I will be back at it as soon as I can. Toodles.